Hello, I'm Jay, and this is the Personal Rules for Reading tag, part 2. This is an open source tag created by MJ at Reading This Life. Try and get those word order correctly, and inspired by a video by Michael K. Vaughan where he talked about his personal rules for reading, where really the main rule is read. But she made prompts and then opened it up. And everyone who makes the video next can add their own question. And once we get past 10, she wants you to make a part 2, which this is part 2. We've got I've got 18 prompts and then one more by myself. So with that little preamble out of the way, let's get into the prompts. Number 11. Mika Cummins says, do you take notes or annotate while you read? If so, what form does it take? Yes, I do annotate. Either if I'm on my Kindle, I'll put the note function and punch in little notes, or I'll highlight stuff. If I'm reading a paper book, I am very happy to scrawl right. I own this book. I'm going to get as much use out of it as possible, and I will write notes in the thing. I will dog ear. Don't usually tab it at all. I also take note form in the way of I'll just kind of sit in the backyard and I'll record myself and I'll just sort of talk out a book that I'm in the middle of reading, just sort of my update as I'm going along, just for myself, for kind of like personal notes. So I think those are all the ways that I annotate, and I would like to say that this is something that I compiled together carefully then at the end for doing the review, but it's more of just a way of intensifying my reading as I'm going. And then when I get to the review, sometimes some of those notes are useful. Sometimes I don't even go back to them. And so yeah, it's very much a part of my reading process to kind of annotate and think, because I like to not just kind of through, but I want to kind of activate that part of my brain that's going to kind of think and kind of pick at stuff as it goes along. So yeah, big thing. Number 12, James Holder's question asked, how many books are in your personal library? I didn't count everything. I don't have a catalog, James, but I did a rough guesstimate, and it's probably somewhere around 925. Trying to always decrease it. I'm at that point where I'm just trying to decrease it. And do I organize your books? My books, I organize them roughly by alphabetical order. It's like, the M's are here, the hopefully the S's are not the next one, but roughly in alphabetical order, with little random piles that just get stacked places because I'm working on something, and then they just get lost there. So it's always in a rough sense of order, but mostly kind of semi-chaotic. Number 13, at Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff, asked, books, reading and stuff, do you read books in languages other than your own? No, I don't. There was a little bit of time in there where I was making the effort to try and learn French and read in French, but then I stopped and I forgot it all, and I just don't have the heart to pick it up again. Number 14, at Michael Romeo Talks Books, do you read classics the same way you read contemporary literature? Or do you approach them differently? And if so, how? And I was like, oh, that is a cool question, because I think, yeah, because when it's contemporary literature, there isn't kind of like a written context for it. There isn't, an introduction. There's usually, oftentimes, especially with a contemporary author, it's like they live in New York, they have a cat, and that's like all you'll get to know about them. So it's very much, you just have to know kind of contemporary literature. You just have to you just get what you get. But the cool thing with classics, at least I see it as a cool thing because I like doing a little bit of investigation, is that with classics, you can go, oh, it's the author who's writing in this time period. And so you can kind of do research on that time period. And it's like, if something gets mentioned in passing, it's like, oh, I can research that. There's a lot more kind of pulling apart of things where you can, you can get a little bit of outside material which isn't to say I'm still not focusing on the text, but there's all this stuff around it that you can use to kind of support your reading. Whereas with contemporary literature, you're sort of on your own, which is its own kind of excitement thing. So yeah, that's a really cool question of saying like, what are the attractions of classic literature, just older literature, something that's, that was written 50 or 60 or 100 years ago, to something that was written last year, and where you have to like, you sort of have to know, or this could be the actual reportage of what you're going to find out about what's happening in a particular community, is you're going to get it through this novel because the intellectuals, the histories have not been written to kind of break this down and make it easily digestible for an outsider. You get a kind of discovery thing. So yeah, it's that is a awesome question there, Michael. So number 15 at Mason in the Dark. What is your favorite / least favorite POV? Probably least favorite, just because it gets used badly. It can be used very well, but it can be used badly, is the you walked into the room, you saw him standing over there, which, can be done effectively. Oftentimes it seems like it's done by the artiste who is stretching a little bit and fails. Some people can do it really well. I mean, I guess that you can say that about for any of the POVs, but yeah, you see a certain type of reaching that they don't like. And what my favorite is might kind of highlight, maybe I'm a kind of a conservative reader, in that I say that my favorite is probably, or at least the one I think I read the most in, is probably limited, on third person limited, where it's an outside narrator, but is only looking over the shoulder of like one particular character. And I mean, if you really want to stretch that to the people who are virtuosic, it's probably third person unlimited, where they can dip into different people's heads. And that's another place where people can get into a lot of trouble, and you'd really have to know your craft. But yeah, it's probably third person limited is probably would be a default that I wouldn't even think about as I was reading it. I mean, for as much as I try and think about craft questions when I'm reading, oftentimes I just kind of get into the book. So yeah. So yeah, that was from Mason in the Dark, who has an extremely awesome channel there. Oh, by the way, I'm going to put the links to each person's video in between my answers to these questions, because it's like you want to go and see their videos, most definitely, and discover different people. Number 16, Courtney at Tangible Reads asked, if there is a book you are interested in reading and it has some really bad trash reviews, would you still read it? And I would say, yeah. I mean, if I'm interested in the book, if there's something in that book that kind of grabs me, I think I might actually still set it out. I know that there's been some really negative reviews, and I've gone, oh, that sounds really interesting, and I've gone and I've sought out that book. I mean, I guess it depends. It depends. I mean, if you get a really thoughtful review that can kind of point out a couple of things, you go, oh, that sounds really annoying, that might actually put me off a book. But it's kind of an either or. It's either or. I'm not going to be completely swayed by that. Now, oftentimes, especially when it's like, it may take only one great review, and even if there's a whole bunch of negative ones, if there's one great review, I'll still still want to give it a shot, kind of stuff like that. So yeah, that was from Courtney at Tangible Reads. Number 17, at Aaron Facer, asked, do you have a set number of pages / amount of time to read per day as a minimum goal? If not, do you set a limit on how much you read? I never set a limit on how much I read. That said, I don't read. I'm always painfully aware that I'm letting the side down in exactly how much I read, but I read what I read. I mean, the whole thing of like goals, that's like, Goodreads has that kind of like, oh, how many books do you want to set your goal for reading in a year? And it's like, I'm going to read hopefully some really good books that year, and I don't care about the number of books I'm going to read, and I don't really care about the page numbers that I'm going to read in a month. I wonder if that kind of comes out of the virus that infects, well, it's either a virus that infects or is the great, wonderful community thing of doing all these readathons, read-alongs where, people make commitments for their reading, which I jealously guard my reading time. I'm loath in most ways of giving up my reading time to wonderful, lovely people out there. I don't like doing that. I think the only exception I've got going at the moment is I'm reading Orlando Furioso at the moment through Tom at LA Books channel, where he's taking us through it's like a canto every couple of days, and I'm trying to actually slow my reading down of that. I'm reading a quarter of a canto each day, and I'm still going too fast for poor Tom, who's he's stopping and he's giving really thoughtful and interesting videos on each canto. And I strongly recommend, if you're interested in some really energetic and vibrant and colorful and great kind of Italian Renaissance poetry, chivalric poetry, you should try that. So yeah, no, the short answer, no, I don't. Number 18, Kim at a middle of the book march asks, do you shush, eye roll, or give the hand to anyone who interrupts your reading? For this question, I went and did research, which is I went and asked Ja, my partner, what do I do? And she says, no, you don't do any of this shushing, or God. I would not be a living husband if I did that. But she does note that I'm extremely hard to actually pull out of a book. It'll be I'll look up, but I won't be giving full attention. There has to be some sharp words, or I'm rather short. She asks a question, and then I'll just dive right back in. So it'll take me a little bit, some stern words there to make sure I pull myself fully out. And she doesn't for the most part, because she is actually a civilized human being, unlike maybe myself, who could aspire to be as polite and as wonderful as my darling Jaja. Okay, that is all the questions from all of the people who've done this tag already. I've been scanning since I filmed the first part yesterday. It's nobody else seems to have put out another version, so there's no other questions. I'm sure once I've edited it, actually, I just need to get this out before Tuesday, because suckers do these tags on Tuesday. I'm going to make sure this is at least out by Monday. So this hopefully is the capper one for the moment, which my question, which is, what mood or feeling do you most love in a book? Sadness, joy, dread, anger, hatred, love, fear, excitement, thrills, etc. And this is probably because I'm a very emotional reader, and I'll, for all you Vulcans out there, if that isn't how you read, what feature, intellectual or otherwise, do you find you constantly wanting to get more of in your reading? And why this question came up for me is I'm reading a lot of Andrew Sean Greer at the moment. I'm building up to rereading Less by him, and then going on to the sequel that he has released this year, whose name I Less is More. I can't remember what it is at the moment, but I'm gonna reread this. I've read his The Story of a Marriage and The Impossible Lives of Greta Wells, and I was thinking as I was reading them, because I don't usually kind of binge an author. I don't usually want to read a whole bunch of an author. I usually read one book and then I need to wander off somewhere else for a while. But I've actually really been enjoying reading Andrew Sean Greer, and I think, other than he's a very beautiful writer, and the books kind of stick in my head, and I'm constantly still trying to kind of figure them out. Less is a book that I've been trying to figure out, which is why I want to reread it. Is I've been trying to figure out and decide what's going on in there and how it's making me feel for a while. And I found that actually going back and reading those other two novels. But what is it that I can be in his worlds over and over again? And I think what the thing is, because I'm an emotional reader, I think it's because he's got a certain kind of melancholy in his books, a certain kind of sadness, which I find, there's something about that I find very comforting. and it's like, oh, this is something that I enjoy in books, and I like to go into books and find and read. And like, and it doesn't just have to be Andrew Sean Greer. I think that kind of, I think about other books that I love, and it's like, oh, that's maybe one of the main emotions. It's not the only emotion, but it's the main emotion that maybe I'm going for. And yes, there's intellectual and all sorts of other kind of needs that are getting filled. There's so much that you get out of reading. But like, yeah, on an emotional level, I think it's that melancholy that really touches me. So I'm curious, what is it in books that you read? What is it in books emotionally? If you're that kind of a reader, do you find like, oh, this is what I'm going back to? This is what I find like when I look at like all the books that I read, like, oh, this is my happy spot. Even if it's the melancholy, it's the spot that like, oh, this is what I go back to. This is what I'm looking for in reading. And actually, as I'm recording this, Criminali just came out with a video called Ollie at Criminali. Why does he, why read disturbing books? And it's sort of him trying to answer that question about what is it about disturbing books that he gets out of them, or what he thinks other people get out of reading disturbing books. Because for myself, I know that's not something that's not my happy place. That's not something that I go to for in books. But I know that is for other people, and I expect there are many more answers to that question, and I'm curious to see what everyone has to say, which is a long, long, long explanation for that. But hopefully that's clear, and hopefully my question, pruned from all this blathering, will get some interesting answers. That said, let me finish this off by spreading the virus and tagging people. Okay, I understand this tag has gotten out of control, and you may just kind of want to walk away quickly. But if you're watching this video, these are all people whose channels you should totally check out, because they make interesting videos as well, and that would enrich your booktube experience. So why not if you feel like doing this, tag Roz at Scally Dangling about the books. Why not give it a try? Dishelved with Adam White. Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading. You need another tag to do, I'm sure. Emily at Time with Books, and at Leafy Concern. I'm not quite sure what his name is. Both Time with Books and Leafy Concern are hand channels where you only see their hands. And I really kind of like that. I admire that in the channel. I just find it easier to. Well, actually, I busted my front-facing camera, so I could never do those kind of videos. I can only do selfie videos because that's the only camera that works on my phone. But I really appreciate those. So yeah, at Emily at Time with Books, and at Leafy Concern, and let's tag Joseph Francis Burton, who, as I tape this, did a live stream last night where he actually did the philosophy of reading tag. Just a really kind of casual, laid back thing. I unfortunately was not able to see it live because I was at work. But Joseph Francis Burton, Joe, is just kind of an old school booktuber. He's been on here forever, going off and doing his own goddamn thing. I think I watch his videos and I kind of despair about how mundane and ordinary I am, and I could only aspire to be as he is his own man, whether you agree with what he has to say or not. And you know what? He doesn't care. He just would love to argue with you about it, I'm sure. Yeah, you should definitely check out Joseph Francis Burton, and yeah, prepare to be challenged. I certainly am, and I think I'm. It's why I can be on BookTube because of that. All right, that has been a long ass video that we have now done, and I will go off and do something else. I've been Jay. More videos later. Thank you, MJ, for taking Michael K. Vaughan's tag and weaponizing it and potentially destroying the YouTube by turning us all into just constantly having to make more and more videos on this subject. which, we were gonna anyways, so you might as well just, be the evil mastermind behind it. All right. I've been Jay. More videos later.